Highly requested. Today we talk about ICM. Listen, first and foremost, I'm not providing you some magical ranges here, how ICM is working out in the early game for all different stages. No, this video is about providing you some insights on what ICM is, how it applies, especially if you're new into poker. I have bad news, but I also have good news. Bad news, yes, ICM is complex, yet the good news, there are a lot of ways where we can simplify, which I'm going to be showing later on in the video as well. So hang on, it's going to be incredibly valuable. I'm pretty sure a lot of you that are watching right now have been doing this wrong over and over again. Before I dive deeper into explaining you the concepts of ICM, don't forget we're currently on a massive sale, the WCOOP sale, where we have discounts up to $400. Just check out everything in the description. So now let's talk about ICM. You need to understand that ICM essentially calculates the real value of your chips. In fact, it calculates the monetary value of your chip stack. And something that you need to consider when you think about ICM, which is called the independent chip model, is it also has flaws because it does not consider your edge, it does not consider future game, it does not consider potentially, especially in bounty tournaments, if you cover someone. So these are all soft factors that we need to consider into making our decisions as well. If you watch me streaming, very often I will say, okay, this might be slightly profitable, but I'm going to be skipping it for other reasons I have on players that will increase future spots or the EV of future spots. So I'm going to skip this margin spot. So because I'm pretty sure on average, the chances are high I'm going to see or I'm going to generate higher EV spots in the next couple of orbits. ICM basically gives you a better understanding of the risk and the reward in all stages of a tournament. Again, I'm trying to keep it very generic. A lot of you guys who already have experience with ICM, you might already have heard all of this, but a lot of you guys have not. One of the core principles of ICM is in an ICM environment, which every tournament is, every sit and go, every tournament is going to be in an ICM situation. One exception, heads up. Under ICM, every chip you win is less worth than the chips you lose. I'll show you an example. So let's have a look at this 6max sit and go, regular payout structure. It's a hyper turbo tournament as we see it on PokerStars, blinds 10-20, starting stacks 500. You see on the bottom right your table equity. This is going to be a $100 prize pool, $65 for first, $35 for second. And as you can see at the start of the tournament, all of the stacks are worth $60.67. Now, if one player busts another stack, you see that the stack that now has increased to double the starting stack from 25 big blinds to 50 big blinds. You start with 25 big blinds. You see that from 60.67, it goes to 31. So his stack doubles, right? He gains 250 or 500 more chips, yet the V of his stack does not double. And this is a very important concept, especially in sit and goes. You would see that concept very often. Tight is right, especially in the early stages, because you benefit from other players busting. Where did the remaining EV or value of the stack go? Well, it's being distributed amongst the other players. You see, without even them doing anything, it goes up from 60.67 to 17.25. So the moment a player busts 600 going into 500, all the other players not involved in the hand, when someone busts, benefit from it. The underlying principle of ICM is essentially, it calculates the likelihood of you getting first times the likelihood of getting second times getting third, and then it provides you a certain value of your stack. And it does it for every stack, right? So the more chips you have, the higher is going to be the value of your stack, because chances are higher you're going to be finishing in one of the top spots. If you have less chips, chances are a little bit more higher, you were not going to reach those top spots. It's still possible, but less possible due to the fact that you have less chips. That's the nature of the game. And this is where we can now see the guy that it's not that he's going to have 100% likelihood as long as other players are involved, because there's still the possibility they double up, he loses an all in, and then it's back to a race. So here we can see now his stack is worth $31 and the others have $17.25 this worth their stack. So this is just an example. This what I very often see that when they talk about ICM, that they don't really grasp this main concept of, yeah, you win, you double up, but you're not doubling up the EV of your stack, because the rest of the equity goes to the other players, because whenever a player busts, everyone benefits from it. Of course, the one stack that busted that very player and doubles up through him or gains chips through him benefits the most, of course. And this is just for a 6-mix sit and go. We're also going to be looking now into an example for tournament poker. So in tournament poker, assume you start with 100,000 chips at the beginning of a tournament. How would it reflect here? Well, of course, the impact is not that big as it is in a sit and go, because in the very early stage of a tournament. So the payouts are still far away, but I show you an example that, let's say we have a 1200 runner tournament and we have 1000 players left. So the bubble is still far away, but I'm going to show you that the impact is still significant. So let's assume at the beginning of a tournament, you have 100,000 chips, now especially now during the W Coup, or 10,000, 25,000 starting stack. Very often the starting stacks are a little bit bigger in terms of the chips. It doesn't really matter, but just for clarification. So now let's say in one of the very first hands, you bust someone, you double up and you go from 100,000 to 200,000. Let's say it's $100 buy-in. Of course, you double up your stack, but you're not doubling up your dollar EV or the EV of your stack, right? Dollar EV is a very common term in ICM. One might think, well, at the beginning of a tournament, it's obvious your stack is worth $100 if the buy-in was $100 in the very first hand. So then, of course, it starts swinging up and down depending if you lose chips and win chips. So now if you bust someone, it's not going up to $200. It's probably going to go up to $199 or $199.70 or $198, whatever. You get the catch here. And the remaining 70, 50, $1 or 70 cents is being distributed amongst the other players. Again, it's not that big on an effect of the very, very first stage, but the closer you get to the bubble, even if already 100, 200 players have busted, you will see that when it comes to calling all ins, going all in yourself, that compared to pure chip EV, we want to be playing a little tighter. And I'm going to be showing you that right now. I want to show you one practical example how ICM also applies here in the early stage. So we have the scenario, 1100 players entered the tournament, we're around 1000 players left, so only 100 to 200 players have busted so far. 140 or 150 players are paid. We're min raising the button, we have around 15 big blinds, and deck distribution is around, everyone has having between 10 and 20 big blinds. Of course, it might not be 100% realistic, but it's just about to show you the comparison. Could be similar to a turbo tournament structure, but it's about seeing the impact of ICM here and the danger about just copy pasting chip EV ranges, which A, can be very confusing, and B, do not consider the impacts of ICM. When we look at, for example, the situation, we have 100,000 chips, blinds are 3,500, 7,000. So we have the scenario around 13, 14, 15 big blinds. We min raise the button, big blind goes all in, and our calling range. And this would be our raise calling range with that very stack size. Of course, since we're getting shorter and shorter, we can start raise calling wider. But a lot of these hands here, you see they're very, very marginal. Queen Jack suited is minus EV, ace 8 off very marginal, pocket 5's even very marginal, pocket 4's very marginal. I did the same now for chip EV. Basically assuming we have no ICM influence, the way you would see a lot of these ranges that you will find out there that have not been adjusted, just copy pasted, and don't consider ICM and not even future game. That's why you will see the ranges in the Turn Masterclass who have been adjusted based on my understanding on how population plays, but also based on ICM, because I've seen a lot of these ranges and I know that we're supposed to be calling off tighter and not gamble that much in the early stage of a tournament, even though Chip EV tells you, rejam Queen Jack suited for 35 big blinds, shows you somewhat of a profit, but if we consider ICM, it might actually turn minus EV. So let's look into Chip EV. And you will see that here in Chip EV, we're calling off much wider, right? Then you will find that Queen Jack suited is a raise call, King 10 suited is a raise call, Ace 4 suited is a raise call, Ace 7 off is a raise call, Pocket 3s is a raise call. And again, we compare that with ICM, boom, we see actually a much tighter range. The way you can apply this, and this is what I promised you at the beginning, let's call it the good news, is whenever you work with ranges, try to skip the marginal hands. Of course, it really depends on the kind of sport and how many players are left. So when you have access to ranges, make sure they're adjusted for ICM, because otherwise you just keep burning money. You might find, you might look it up and you see, wow, ace-5 suited is a profitable raise call here, or pocket fours, right? He's like, well done. Well, bad news. No, technically, you're, especially with these suited aces, you might be losing money. And of course, very often we could now reflect this for 20, 25 big blinds, 30 big blinds, when you have these marginal spots with ace queen. You know, I kind of have to call it, well, if we start considering ICM, it might turn negative EV. And this is when only 100 or 200 players have busted. What about if 500 players have busted? If we're 100 left to the bubble, things will change even more, and it's going to have a much bigger impact on your ranges as well. So this is what I'm trying to teach publicly, but also, of course, where we dive deeper in the Turn Masterclass. But I just wanted to give you a first push towards understanding ICM and how it applies, so you can make first adjustments. It is indeed a complicated topic, but you don't need to study tens of hours to make first adjustments. I hope this video has provided you some value in terms of you being able to adjust and not trap into those pitfalls as many players do, and burning a lot of EV and leaving a lot of money on the table, but just constantly engaging in these marginal chip EV spots. Even if it's slightly profitable, pretty sure under ICM circumstances, it's going to turn negative EV, especially if you consider your future game. And if you give yourself somewhat of an edge that you beat your field, then it's actually pretty dumb. This is where I also think the Turn Masterclass has its massive power with ICM adjusted preflop ranges. There's still, I have to admit, there's still some spots that are to my taste still too marginal, but then sometimes I feel like, wow, that's gonna be too nitty. But as you've seen me playing over the last couple of months, I try to play very solid in the early game. Yeah, here and there, a punt a day keeps the doctor away. But I try to play very solid and be very mindful about the spots I engage myself in. And I think over the last couple of months, I'm having way more deep runs, and this minor adjustment, and I've been always considering it, but I try to push it even more, that I'm really mindful about, okay, when am I going to be going all in, and especially when calling all in. This is where the ICM impact, also known as ICM tax risk premium, so essentially under chip EV, when you need 30% equity or 35% equity, you need 38% equity. Sometimes it's 1%, sometimes it's 3%, also known as the bubble factor. Bubble factor, ICM tax, risk premium, all similar terms that describe the same effect, which means we need additional equity to call in all in, or additional forward equity in order to make a bluff. Of course, something when you goal in yourself, in chip EV, let's say you need 40% in order that the bluff works. Under ICM, it needs to work 43%. So for bluffing, you want to bluff a little bit less. For calling all-ins, you want to call a little bit tighter. That's the main description here. I mean, this is, again, that's why I made a course where I have hours of time to show illustrations and show the real impact with certain stack sizes and how it really changes in reality. So I hope in this quick video, I was able to give you a first push in understanding ICM, and I hope you guys find some value in it. Good luck at the tables. Never forget, ICM is real, it's happening, or you keep wasting your money. See you guys next time.